This is Hot Mike with Dom Izzo, presented by Northwestern Mutual.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Off and rolling here on a Thursday morning. So we've heard from more than half of the coaches in the league. Obviously, we had three on last week. We were in Vegas live. We had Tim Polisic join us. We had Dan Mullen, which was fantastic, and Scotty Walden, which was really, really good as well, the head coach of UTEP, join us live. And then early this week, on Monday, we had Timmy Chang, head coach of Hawaii. If you missed that, it was fantastic. Tuesday, we had Jason Eck, head coach of New Mexico, which was electric. Yesterday was a different interview with Troy Calhoun, the head coach of Air Force, to give us what life is like as an Air Force cadet, I thought was entirely fascinating. And honestly, after sitting there visiting with him, that is now leapt up to me as my top destination of Bison football road games this year. To see that in person, I'm more than excited to see that in Colorado Springs coming up on September the 12th. Our next coach, though, is a guy that's actually pretty familiar with the Fargodome, and Jeff Choate, the head coach at Nevada. And for Bison fans, they certainly remember Choate as the head coach at Montana State. He led the Cats from 2016 to 2020 and turned that program around. They were Montana State. It's hard to believe now since it's 10 years ago, but at that time, Montana State was lost in FCS football. The Big Sky Conference in 2016, Eastern Washington was running the roost, right? They were, Bo Baldwin was the head coach. They had Cooper Kupp playing for them. I mean, they were, that 2016, 10 years ago, that was the year Eastern Washington came here to the Fargodome, one of the most famous games, thrilling games in Fargodome history. Bison beat Eastern in overtime. That's who Eastern Washington, I believe, that year beat Oregon State, I want to say. They were the team. Both Montanas, frankly, were not relevant. Montana was sniffing around with Bob Stitt, but they didn't make any leeway. It was Eastern Washington and Weber State. They were the tops of the Big Sky. And Choate came in 2016. They were 4-7 in his first year. They weren't making any headway. 2017, they went 5-6. 2018, though, they started to get some momentum going with them. And they had a young player named Troy Anderson that decided to go to Bozeman, who was one of the best athletes in the history of the state of Montana. We got to see Troy Anderson at a couple spots. Quarterback and linebacker, since the Cats and the Bison became intimately familiar with one another through a 4-year stretch where they played 3 times in the FCS playoffs. 2018, they went in the second round. The Cats came here, and the Bison destroyed them. Lance Dunn, I think, scored 4 or 5 touchdowns in that game. It was a rout in 2018. But they finished 8-5 that year. The final score in that game was 52-10, by the way, when the Bison beat Montana State. Montana State had beaten Montana on the road in Bozeman. Then they beat Incarnate Word in the opening round of the playoffs and then fell to the Bison. The following year, the real breakthrough. They won 11 games that year. They won the Big Sky. They hammered Montana that year in Bozeman. They got a top playoff seed. They got a bye. They beat Albany in the first round. Then they beat Austin Peay. And their reward is the number 5 overall seed. Because Sac State was good then. Remember, Sac State had a solid year. And they got bounced, I believe, by Austin Peay, if I remember correctly. Montana State's reward was a trip to Fargo. And that was the infamous Christian Watson 2 touchdowns in a minute and a half game. And the Cats lost, I believe, 42-14. And then we all remember what happened in 2020. The Big Sky opted not to have a spring season. Choate was still the coach, left in the spring of 21 to take a job at Texas. He was an assistant with Steve Sarkisian there. He was the co-defensive coordinator, spent 3 years at Texas. And then his name was bandied about for a couple of jobs. And when the Nevada job opened, he obviously took it. And it's been rough for 2 years in Reno. 6-19 in the 2 years. 3-10 in 2024. Last year, 3-9. And they're not expected to be at the top of the Mountain West here in 2026. He's got some interesting amount of talent. He's got a young quarterback on his roster and hoping for big things this upcoming fall. Here's my conversation with Jeff Choate, the head coach of the Wolfpack. Old friend from days back at Montana State. I'm sure when you heard the news that North Dakota State was coming out, you had Jason Eck saying, I'd never want to go back to that dome again. I don't know if you felt the same way, but give us your thoughts when you heard the news that the Bison were coming.
Well, I was excited from the standpoint of knowing the type of program that was going to be elevating this league. And when the Mountain West can go out and get a team with the history and tradition of North Dakota State, obviously I know what a passionate fan base that is there, how important that program is, not just to the university and the community, but the entire state and even the region. And so I think that's always exciting when you got to going to a place where it matters and you feel that passion and that energy. I mean, I think that's, you want that for your players, and as coaches and competitors, we want to be in those environments too. And so, candidly, I want to go back to Fargo because I haven't won there. So I'd like to figure out what it feels like to walk out of there with a W someday. So,
describe the energy around this league. Obviously, people see, Boise State is gone and Fresno's gone, San Diego State's gone. There's 3 new in here. What have you seen over the league over the last 5 months about getting ready for a new football season?
Well, I mean, I think that all college football conferences are evolutionary, right? And they have been for a long time. This isn't a new thing. And I think that this is going to be a good evolution for the Mountain West Conference. I think that, the 3 programs that are entering the league are very quality programs. They're places that, that are going to present challenges from a competitive standpoint. Stylistically, they're going to be different. You're going to get the ball thrown a lot at UTEP. You're going to have kind of, the traditional, I'm guessing, ground and pound. You better stop A-gap power if you're going to play the Bison. And, and then a program like NIU that was a MAC powerhouse and not too long ago knocked off Notre Dame at that place. And so I think that's going to add a lot of quality to the Mountain West Conference. And I think this is a good group of coaches. They're good people. I think Tim is a great coach. I like him personally. I mean, I think he's about what what football's supposed to be about. And, I think this was a logical time for a variety of reasons for North Dakota State to make this jump. And I think some of it has to do, maybe not all of it, but some of it has to do with the fact that, in 19, when we played there in the national semifinals, I think we had 7 guys on our roster that ended up playing in the NFL. I can't even imagine how many guys. I know they had a first-round draft pick at quarterback, a first-round draft pick at wide receiver, a couple of high draft picks on the O-line.
Yes.
And you don't see that as much anymore at that level because of the transfer portal.
Yep.
And so being able to retain your best players and keep those guys in Fargo, I'm sure had to play at least a small role in that decision.
On the flip side now, have coached in the FCS, and I've seen this, I was talking with Jason Eck about this, the level of players coming from the FCS to play in the group of 6, the level of quality there. Is it surprising on the outside for people to say, wow, the level of talent at FCS football is maybe better than what I knew?
No, for sure. I think the biggest separation is going to be the depth. There's some elite players, and you guys have had a bunch of them at NDSU over the years. I mean, I think you look at what Coach Eck did, taking a lot of good players that he had from Idaho, the kind of the top end guys, whether that's Jack, the quarterback, his son Jackson, the DN that they had, they had a lot of really good players that came with them, and I think that helped to jumpstart that program and get the culture where he wanted it there.
Tell me about at Nevada, where you're at right now. I know you didn't have the success you've wanted so far. What you're looking to do here in 2026? I
think we need to have a little bit of a breakthrough. I mean, we've been, kind of excruciatingly, painfully close in a lot of games, and you got to have that moment where the kids go, okay, hey, we can do this. And close isn't good enough in this sport, and that's just the nature of it. I think that one of the things that's critical for us is we need to get out of the gate. I mean, if we can get a couple of wins early in the season, I think create some confidence going into conference play, and that can change a lot of things.
I know you don't make scheduling, so when you see Montana State on the schedule, how personal is that one for you, and knowing full well what they're bringing back as the reigning FCS champions?
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, I actually did have a hand in scheduling that game. And I'd say that, number one, I wanted to play Montana. That was the team that I really wanted to play. And, you get a sheet. Basically, ESPN gives you a sheet. Okay, these are the available dates. These are the available teams, right? And so both of those teams had open dates where we were looking for a game. And I thought 2 things. Number one, that is going to be we're going to get a quality opponent.
Yep.
And number two, I know both of those fan bases travel, and I'd like to fill Mackey as much as we can.
Yeah.
And so I think it's, candidly, it's not a personal thing to me at all. I'm extremely proud of the time that we had there at Montana State University and what we were able to help build there.
Yeah.
Really happy for Coach Vigen and the job. He's done a fantastic job there, obviously winning a national championship. And so, like that part of it, it's a ball game to me. Let everybody else worry about that other stuff, And so that's kind of how I look at it.
Brawl the Wild memories. What comes to mind when I ask you about that?
Never lost.
How proud are you about that?
Damn proud.
Yeah. Just those games, the energy around it, both in Bozeman and Missoula. For those uninitiated about it, what is it about it that stands out to you about those games?
I obviously I haven't been directly a part of the South Dakota State North Dakota State rivalry or UND NDSU, so I can't speak to that. But I imagine there's probably some commonalities in that. You've got a state like Montana that's not populous, that has two institutions that are 3 hours apart, and they don't like each other very much. And you're either a Bobcat or a Grizzly in that state, and so that's just kind of the way it is, and it makes it very unique. Two passionate fan bases that it's Montana's Super Bowl. Everybody circles that the second it comes out.
I mean, Nevada's had some great football players, great football history. How much does that not necessarily weigh on you, but knowing we want to tap into that, we want to get back to those days of when the Wolfpack were really, really good at the top of the league?
Yeah, that's candidly, one of the reasons why I knew this was going to be a challenging job. Yeah. There were some things that needed to be addressed, and we're in the process of doing that, and we've made some strides. And but that was my goal when I got here. It was like, hey, how do we get Nevada back to what I remember it being in the early 2000s, and going way back, what I remember it being in the Big Sky Conference, being a guy that grew up in that footprint. Yeah. And so, that's really my mission, is to try to get this ship righted and get us in a position where we can compete for championships again.
I got to ask, for Bison fans and for just we don't know about like the road trips here. Hawaii is one that just jumps up the mind. What is that like? What is the going out there, and is there anything to compare to it?
No, it's probably one of the most unique trips that you'll take, and I've done it a bunch of different ways.
Yeah.
Go out a day early, go out day out. Just try to kind of manufacture it. But the thing that you really can't quite tap into is the environment. There's just something like the island time thing is real. It almost lulls you to sleep. Like warm-ups, they got the hula music playing, and you're like, all right, okay, how do I get these guys juiced up and ready to go? And then the kickoff comes and you play football. But those guys, they defend the rock, man. Like that, they're generally a different team on the island, and they're very, very tough out there.
How is there any way to describe any other road environment? You've been in college football for a long time. Is there anything that compares to that, or no? It's so unique.
Yeah, I think that's a one-off. Yeah, I think that's a one-off,
yeah. Last thing here, I'm interested also for Bison fans are getting used to what the Mountain West Conference is. How would you describe the players in the league and the type of football that's played in the Mountain West?
Well, I mean, we have a new footprint, right? And so I think that what would excite me if I was a fan of North Dakota State and knew that, number one, I've said this a couple of times, I think that this is going to actually reinvigorate the fan base. Because I know we went there in the quarterfinals in 18, and the house wasn't packed. You go there for the semis, it was going to be a party, right? And so I think now it's people are going to, hey, let's show up, let's pack the dome, because hey, we don't know much about this program, but we need to make sure that we're behind our team, and so I think that reinvigorating the fan base there is going to be a positive. But from a league standpoint, I think the things that you're going to see is just the diversity within this league. I mean, a lot of leagues become a little bit homogeneous in terms of the style of play that you see. I think one of the things that makes the Mountain West very unique is that you're going to see such a wide variety of play, whether that's the option schemes that you're going to see from Air Force or the run and shoot stuff that you're going to see at Hawaii, the traditional ground and pound that you're going to get from NDSU. It's a very diverse league, and I think that's going to create some parity. And matchups make the game, right? Like it always does. It doesn't matter what it is. The matchup makes the game, and I think the matchups are going to be really exciting.
Last thing, what will you tell your team about going to Fargo when you get ready? I know it's middle part of the season. You're worried about game one, but you get to October 17th. What do you tell your team about that road trip to the Fargodome?
I think that the two things that I'm going to make sure they understand is, number one, understand like these guys, this is a physical outfit, and you're going to have to bring your lunch pail. And number two, don't listen to the fans. Mind your business. Just keep your eyes on your work.
Thanks so much for doing this. Great to see you. Good luck this year. We'll look forward to seeing you in October, okay?
Awesome. Thank you.
There's our conversation with Nevada head coach Jeff Choate, and I thought it was really interesting, his response when I asked him about the Brawl the Wild memories, because that's something I could ask our guy Drew Trafton, and he does not have fond memories of Choate being head coach of Montana State. As he mentioned, they never lost in the 4 years that he was head coach of the Cats, and trying to take that same blueprint that he built at Bozeman and bring it to Reno. And I am infinitely curious about that game. We talked about it, the Montana State-Nevada game on September the 12th, because I think there is you know what? That's a mistake on my part. We should have seen what the betting odds were for that game, but it would not surprise me one iota if Montana State ends up being a favorite in that game with the Cats coming up in Reno on September the 12th. Montana State brings a ton of players back. They're the reigning champions. I don't think many think highly of what Nevada football is in 2026, and knowing full well what Montana State brings to the table. There's no betting line on it right now, but I would not surprise me if Montana State ends up being not even a slight favorite, maybe a pretty good favorite in that game when they play in Reno. That's one of the final games of the day on that particular Saturday. So I know for fans here, you're going to have your eyes on, obviously, that game's on Fox Sports 1, the Bison Air Force game, but Montana State, Nevada's on the CW. To have your tablet out or phone and be keeping an eye, at least I know I will be, to see what's happening with that game in Reno that night. But this is a make or break is probably the right way to say it. They got to win some ball games. They only won 3 each of the last couple of years. They got a brand new indoor facility that's coming up in Reno that they got to contend for a bowl game. Now, will they? I don't know. You saw their schedule, what is in front of them. And we mentioned the Montana State game. They open with Western Kentucky, which is not a world beater in Conference USA, but that's a solid outfit. Montana State then comes to Reno. They go to Middle Tennessee State. Then they host Air Force at UTEP, at NDSU. Back-to-back roadies, so they go to El Paso and Fargo. Home for San Jose State, at UCLA. And I know UCLA isn't what they were, but that's still a trip to the Rose Bowl. Then they host New Mexico, at Northern Illinois, host Hawaii, and then the season with their rivalry game at UNLV. That's going to be tough to get 6 wins out of there. Their road trips again, Middle Tennessee, El Paso, Fargo, the Rose Bowl. Fargodome and the Rose Bowl back-to-back sounds different, doesn't it? And then DeKalb and Vegas. We'll see. But there's a couple jobs I'd look at right now that certainly Wyoming is one with Jay Sawvell and Nevada with Jeff Choate. They got to win some ball games in 2026. It'll be really interesting to see what plays out with each of those programs. All right, we're overdue for a break. We'll take it here. We'll wrap up our first hour. Big second hour plan. We'll talk some baseball. We'll talk some football. A few emails coming in as well. As Hot Mike rolls on a Thursday morning, we're back after this.